going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at ImacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 198, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on. NBA draft is tomorrow. We'll talk about that for a little bit. Same with Omaha. Tennessee won it all. But this episode is really going to be about the MLB midseason. We got midseason awards, Kyle.
Yeah, it's we try to space these out a good amount throughout the season. We don't want to do it every other week like we do with the power rankings. However, it feels right to do the power rankings every other week with how rapidly things change. But we did about a quarter season awards. I want to say it's May 13th. It's now a month and a half since that date, and so it seems like the perfect time to do that. By the time we do our next episode, every team, I believe, should have played 81 games. So we are pretty much right at that halfway mark, and it works in well with some of the episodes that we have coming on in the future. So we'll be going over our top three for the AL and NL MVP, the Cy Youngs, the Rookies of the Year. Then we'll do a AL and NL Manager of the Year pick, as well as an AL and NL Breakout and Bust. And then get into our playoff team predictions and bracket. So that'll be fun to do. But we got to start off with our openers. And my opener, you kind of hit on it a little bit with the College Baseball World Series. But the eventful Monday that we had in the sports world yesterday was pretty cool to see. We had Game 3 of the College World Series, like you said, between A&M and Tennessee. Of course, Tennessee wins that game there. And then you had to flip your channel to ABC like 10 seconds later to watch the Florida Panthers take down the Edmonton Oilers in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup and see how that went down. I thought it was pretty interesting because I had ESPN up on my PlayStation, and right above it where I have my TV, I had ABC up, and that's where the Stanley Cup playoffs were going on. And Scott Van Pelt's doing all this stuff for the post-game of the College Baseball World Series, and then he has to change super quickly into the post-game of the NHL Stanley Cup. So it's pretty cool to see how he was going on, and he was showing baseball highlights in between that as well too. I'm like, this dude, he's got a million things going on, and you just don't see it. So shout out to Scott Van Pelt for being such a great and underappreciated person in the sports world over the past 10 to 15 years. But just a crazy day in sports all around.
Oh yeah. Before I get to mine, you nailed it with Scott Van Pelt, man. He's been at ESPN forever. He could have easily went and made his own show, but he earned that anchor spot, and he's really doing it all, living the life. My opener is going to be something I saw in person, not on TV. Saturday, went to the Coliseum for one of the last times ever and watched the Twins smoke the A's. But we saw a couple pretty far homers. I believe Soderstrom and Manuel Margot both went 419 within about 20 minutes of each other. Those are some pretty far homers. Reminded me of seeing like Kalanick and Matt Olson and just some crazy left-handed swings that we've seen come into the Coliseum before. But this one was all about Bailey Ober. Gave up 2 runs, 2 solo shots, I believe. But other than that, he was magnificent. He got the Maddox. I haven't seen a complete game in person in many, many years. So that was pretty elite to watch. And we stayed to watch him get dunked by ice at the end, too. Pretty cool.
Yeah, as I said, I've seen a fair share of shutouts. I've seen 2 perfect games at the Coliseum. Obviously, I wasn't with you for this game, but I don't think I've ever seen a Maddox. I mean, maybe if I go back to look at the games that I went to in like 2007 and stuff, but that's a pretty rare thing to see. And it wasn't just a Maddox; it was an 89 pitch Maddox or 90 pitches. So to not even be close to 100 pitches is ridiculous. Shout out Bailey Ober. He's starting to come around from his really rough start that he had. I remember his first start against Kansas City this year was like 1 inning, 9 earned runs or something like that. So he's been solid ever since. Having fantasy, and even though it was against the A's, I was okay with it because we do suck. But kind of cool you got to witness that.
Massive human.
Course, yeah. He also wears the reverse Grinch Kobe 11s, I want to say. I forget which Kobe's they are. A pretty like big shoe in the sports world. He wasn't wearing them on Saturday, so maybe that was the reason why I pitched good or something. But still pretty cool dude in Bailey Ober. Anyways, moving on to our player, pitcher, rookie of the week, as we do every week on the show during the baseball season. We'll get right into it together. Who's your player?
I'm going to go with the top once again. How about Aaron Judge? Boy, I am not on the right page. I knew it was Harper. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? This makes no sense. Aaron Judge did not play that many games. Apologize. Bryce Harper
Yeah.
at the top for the most important categories this week because he had 12 hits in 5 games, including 4 homers, led the Phils to a 5-2 week. Pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm going Harper as well too. 12 for 22, 4 doubles, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, and OPS at 1.8. It's Bryce Harper, man. Well, we'll talk more about him once we get to the MVP rankings. Pitcher of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with another fan favorite here. How about Tanner Bybee? Huge week for him. 6-inning shutout against Seattle with 12 Ks to start the week. And he finished the week off with a quality start in Baltimore. So that's 1 earned run to 19 strikeouts for a guy from Fullerton.
Yeah, I was thinking about putting Bybee. I was trying to see if anyone had a one outing that just stuck up above the others. And I saw Bailey Ober. I was thinking about putting him there, but I decided to put his teammate there, Pablo Lopez, for his 8 shutout innings that he had against the A's on Sunday. 2 hits, 1 walk, 14 strikeouts. I was watching that game, and if it wasn't for Lawrence Butler's hit in the 6th inning, it felt like we were going to get perfect gamed by this guy. He was absolutely rolling. Just a dominant performance from Pablo Lopez, who hasn't been that good this year, which is shocking because his stuff is still ridiculous. On to Rookie of the Week.
How about Jackson Merrill? Pretty comparable numbers to Harper, our player of the week. So he finally steals one of these from the pitchers. He had 435 this week, 3 homers, 8 ribbies, and the Padres won 5 out of 6.
Yeah, the 21-year-old center fielder for the Padres is my choice as well, too. 10 for 23, 3 homers, 8 RBIs. Like you said, 1.350 OPS. This guy's breaking out, man. If you just look at how he's been over the past month, ever since that A's series, I want to say the A's series was the one that started it. He hit 2 homers that series, and then he hit 2 homers the next series against the Mets, I want to say. And since then, he's just been breaking out, man. It's good to see for the Padres. I know they put a lot on this guy, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about him again once we get to the NL Rookie of the Year poll for us. Anyways, moving on to I guess we'll get into the MVP, but our midseason awards is what I was trying to say. We'll start off with the AL MVP, and I will start off if there's any honorable mentions. Skyler, who do you want to talk about here?
Yeah, Jose Ramirez, Juan Soto, they haven't skipped a beat. We just have some pretty crazy shortstops we got to talk about in the AL first.
Yeah, I did have 3 guys. I guess it's kind of 2.5. Soto, I wanted to talk about because he's been up there. He's 3rd in the AL in WAR. J-Ram, who now leads the AL in RBIs after having 3 already today in Baltimore. He's at 72 RBIs now. And then I did want to give a shout out to Royce Lewis. He's only played like 15 games, but he's averaging like 0.1 WAR per game at this point, right? Which is ridiculous. He's not going to win MVP. He's not going to come close because he's not going to play enough games. But I just want to give him the respect that he deserves for being as good as he's been for the Twins and the minimal amount of games that he's played this season. Number 3.
So before I say my number 3, you mentioning Royce Lewis, I have to tell you this story. So the guys who heckle but give compliments? Mm-hmm. There was a guy like that who was a Twins fan at the game, and it was like maybe 20 minutes before the game. Royce Lewis is walking by. And this guy goes, "Hey, Royce, your slash line's better than Shohei. Take that." It's like, man, it's up there with Barry Bonds, man.
It's ridiculous, man.
So, I thought I should mention that. But yeah, I'm going to go with Bobby Witt here for the 3 spot. It was really hard to decide who gets the 3 because I don't want to knock any of them. They're all great. And at the end of the day, Bobby Witt's going to get the short end of the stick because he's only hit 12 homers. He makes up for it, though. 7 triples, 21 stolen bases. Solid shortstop defensively, of course. And it just sucks that there's 2 guys that are even more incredible so far.
Yeah, and something that I'll hit on here, I'm sure you kind of noticed it as well, too, but it feels like the American League Cy Young and MVP races are a bit more prevalent in the AL side. I think any guys in the 1, 2, 3 would probably be like first in WAR on the NL side for both of these awards, which is just kind of crazy. And then it's the complete opposite for NL rookie or for Rookie of the Year in the NL side. So just kind of a weird thing with this season. I do have Bobby Witt in my 3 spot as well, too, though. His 4.5 WAR is 4th in the American League. 12 homers is 22nd in the American League. His 145 WRC plus is 11th, so it's not anything crazy there. But he gets back at it with the average at 312, which is 4th. 21 stolen bases is 2nd. His 14.6 barrel percent is at 12th in the league. 53 RBIs is tied for 5th. Going into today, that is. And then outs above average, 10, which is 2nd among AL shortstops this season. So he's been great in every single place that you can be great in the game of baseball. Number 2.
Number 2 is going to be Gunnar Henderson, and we talked about it a little bit today earlier. The closer he gets to 50 home runs, the harder it's going to be to keep him out of the top spot, because only Rangers A-Rod has joined the club as a shortstop. I believe right now Henderson's at 25 homers after today, so he probably falls just short, but he's having a crazy all-around season with way more power than we usually see from these 5-tool types of players.
Yeah, I got Gunnar in my 2 spot as well, too. Coming into today, it was a 5.4 WAR, which is 1st in the AL. 24 homers, now up to 25, as we talked about. That's still 2nd in the American League. The 174 WRC plus is 5th. Still got 13 stolen bases at 12th, or tied for 12th in the American League. 53 RBIs, just like Bobby Witt, is 5th. And then 6 defensive runs saved and 7 outs above average are both 3rd among American League shortstops right now. It's just, this guy's not just a hitter, man. I think that's the easy thing to look at with the power numbers and the stuff that he does on that side of the ball. He's such a good defender at shortstop as well, too, and he's only 22 years old. This guy's going to get better. We're just getting the very tip of Gunnar Henderson right now. Just imagine this dude in 5 years from now when he's hopefully on the Orioles. I think that'd still be cool. But when he's playing shortstop at 27 years old, this guy's he's got it's like 60 homer potential. You know, it's ridiculous to think.
We thought Seager was on a good path.
Yeah. This guy, if you want to be a Hall of Famer, start your career the way Gunnar Henderson has. Ever since midway through last year, he just took off, and it's never been the same since. So Gunnar Henderson's number 2. Number 1.
It's Aaron Judge. Everyone knows chicks dig the long ball, but now the analytics dig it too. So perfect for Aaron Judge. He's got an MLB high 28 homers, still has a 1.0 OPS in late June. Just stay healthy.
Yeah. My AL MVP right now as well, too, is Aaron Judge. It's either him or Gunnar. You can't really – I mean, I guess you can make a case for Witt, but with the Royals not playing as good as ball recently, I think it's got to be one of these two guys. Judge is 2nd in WAR at 5.2 coming in today. 28 homers, leads the league at 206 WRC plus. And let me just hit on that real quick. That's 1st in the league, but if the season ended right now, as far as single seasons – since 2000, the only people that he's behind are 01, 02, 03, 04, not Aaron Judge, Barry Bonds, and then 2022 Aaron Judge, which he hit 62 homers. So he's been on an incredible pace to start off this season, and he was terrible in the first month, or he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't Aaron Judge in the first month of the season. So it just goes to show how ridiculous he's been. Another stat that shows how ridiculous he's been is his barrel percent at 28.2. His second in the league is at 19.4. So he's got a solid 9% on the second place guy. That's ridiculous. Hard hits at 62.1. He's got the expected numbers show that he's going to get better as well, too. His 686 slug is 1st in the league, but his expected slug is 732. So he's been getting unlucky while it's been going on. He was 1st in RBIs coming into today. J-Ram has now taken that over, but still 2nd isn't too bad. But it's got to be Aaron Judge as your MVP right now. He's crazy, man. He's impossible to get out. On to the NL side.
Yeah, I got a couple honorable mentions for the National League side. Even though I'm not dying to put these guys in the top 3, we should mention that Jurickson Profar, Freddie Freeman, and Christian Yelich will get MVP votes. They're that valuable to their teams. And I didn't know where to put Mookie Betts, so I left him off.
Yeah, I did the same thing for Mookie Betts. I left him just off. I did have to put him as an honorable mention. You know, at this point, he's not going to, win an award or place in it at this point with how long he's going to be out for. But definitely worth mentioning his start in the first 72 games of the season that he played. I did also have Ketel Marte as an honorable mention on here. He's 5th in WAR in the NL right now. And then Jurickson Profar I wanted to talk about as well, too. as an honorable mention. On to number 3.
It's pretty hard to ignore what Marcell Ozuna has done this season. It seems like for the past year and a half, he's been one of baseball's most feared hitters, and the injury-riddled Braves really needed this guy to step up, and he has. He's got the second most RBIs in the National League. His 21 homers are good for 4th in the league. That's pretty much as good as he could have done for National League voting.
Yeah. I did leave Marcell Ozuna off the list. Maybe it's just my personal bias with the
best
character,
guy.
but
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to get a lot of votes in that stuff, regardless of how good he does. So I put Elly De La Cruz as my number 3 guy, and that makes sense because he's 4th in WAR in the NL right now at 3.3. He's got 14 homers, a 123 WRC plus. They don't really pop off the page, but the 52 runs, which is 4th in the NL, 37 stolen bases, which is 1st in the NL, and more than the Giants, Tigers, A's, and Braves team totals, which is ridiculous, plus the 5 outs above average that he has at shortstop. Shohei Elly De La Cruz deserves to be on this list. It's me. You could say the argument against him right now is like it's just inflated by stolen base numbers, but he has like 11 more stolen bases than anyone else in the league right now, and that's like a ridiculous number. So he's providing, this is a whole argument for Acuna last year. If you calculate those stolen bases into his like slug, then he becomes a ridiculously better hitter. I think you can do that. Make that same case with Elly De La Cruz. It's really just an extra, turns a single into a double, or a double into a triple, or triple into home, or whatever it is. It's the same thing. So Elly De La Cruz deserves to be on this list. I know he's not hitting 300. He's not hitting 40 homers right now or anything like that, but he's been ridiculous for the Reds. And then he's why they're not, completely out of it at this point in June.
He definitely be my next guy.
Yeah.
Number 2, I'm going with Bryce Harper. Multiple Player of the Week nods from us recently, and the power is all the way back now with 19. He's also walking at a crazy rate. I was comparing his numbers this season to Freddie Freeman's MVP year. If you did a blind resume, you would think it was Freddie Freeman, and just pretty awesome from Bryce Harper. He's got the full first base ideology down. No confusion, no strikeouts. He's got it figured out.
That's true. And he leads the league in aura maybe as well, too. He's ridiculous. Bryce Harper is my second. 3.8 WAR is second in the NL. His 19 homers are third. WRC plus at 168 is also third. And his 56 RBIs is fourth. Like you said, the walk rate is something that's big, too, 14.3%. It's only behind one guy in the NL, and that's Kyle Schwarber, who is walk, strikeout, or homer. Bryce Harper's been walk, homer, get on base, maybe strike out every little while, but he's been ridiculous for the Phillies, and he's definitely deserves to be on this list. Number 1.
I had Shohei Ohtani over Mookie Betts when we did this a month ago, so I didn't have much more to talk about here. I think we're going to see a DH win the MVP from the National League.
That's pretty crazy to think about. Saying that 10, 15 years ago, whatever it is. But yeah, I have Shohei. Leads the league in WAR. National League, that is, at 4.2. First in homers at 23. First in WRC plus. First in barrel percent. First in hard hit rate. 58 RBIs is third, and 16 stolen bases as well, too, is ridiculous, which is tied for 7th in the league. He has a chance, not on pace, but he has a chance to go 40-40 from the DH position. And the crazy thing is his expected numbers compared to his current numbers indicate that he's been getting hoed. His average is 318, expected batting average is 342, slug is 626, expected slug is 677. Those are quite wide margins. So I expect Shohei to, even take off even more in the second half of the season. On to the AL Cy Young. Skyler, any honorable mentions here?
There are a lot, and I'm probably going to miss some too. I'll just name them off, I guess, here. We got the very curious season of Ronel Blanco. We have Corbin Burns going to Baltimore, his first year there. Lugo and Reagans of Kansas City. Luis Eel's rookie year. And Garrett Crochet's first year as a starter. So pretty nuts.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys to mention. I did want to just keep it to 3 for mine, though. I did Reagans and Lugo, the 2 guys in Kansas City that have been keeping them afloat on the pitching side, that is. And then Garrett Crochet, who's having quietly a ridiculous season for the Chicago White Sox. And if he does get traded, we'll get a ton back for them when it does happen. Number 3.
All right. I am going to go with Logan Gilbert on the board here. It seems like every time I turn on the Mariners, he's gone 7 innings with 10 Ks every 5 nights. I thought George Kirby was going to be the guy that I kept on the list this season, but it doesn't matter because they've all been great. And Gilbert's 2.7 ERA amongst very similar innings with more Ks, more double play balls. He's the guy I choose here.
Yeah, there's well documented in all of our award things. I like one thing a lot from my Cy Young guys, and that's pitching a ton of innings. And Logan Gilbert's right up there. He is my third candidate as well too. He leads the league in innings pitched right now at 106.1. He's only 7th in WAR at 2.2 among American League starting pitchers, but the ERA is 9th at 2.7. FIP is 10th at 3.25, and the walk rate is at 8th at 1.78 per 9 innings. He hasn't been great, but he's just been eating the most innings at a very effective rate, which I think is super valuable to a team like the Mariners, who are trying to win a pennant. And they haven't had to use their bullpen much at all this year with how good their starting rotation is. Number 2.
At 2, I got Tanner Houck of the Red Sox, one of the biggest surprises this season. And, well, really that entire Boston rotation, too. It's the same story with Seattle. Houck is their leader right now. It's the lowest qualified ERA in the AL at 2.18. He already has more strikeouts than he did all of last season at 101.
Yeah. Tariq Skubal is going to be my second candidate. The 2.5 WAR is 4th. He only has 90 innings pitched, but that's only 15 starts. Most of these other dudes are at 15 or 7 or 16 or 17. Now at this point, the ERA is great at 2.5, which is 5th. The FIP is also 5th at 2.74. K per 9, 10.5, 6th in the league, and 1.8 walks per 9, which is 9th. So he's been ridiculous for the Tigers. They tend to win games when he's pitching. He's been in a gem again today against the Philadelphia Phillies. Number 1.
I got Skubal at number 1. There were a couple numbers I really liked here. And the thing about Skubal this season is he's got the same K numbers as Garrett Crochet while throwing only 14 pitches per inning. If you can go deep into games, you're really dominating. And you already mentioned the ERA and FIP. He's been at that number all season long. No dipping like Imanaga, who we'll talk about later, has done recently.
Yeah. Number 1 for me, though, it feels like a no-doubter in my mind. It's Tanner Houck. 3.6 WAR is first among any pitcher in the MLB right now. It's 103.1 innings pitched in 16 game starts. Game started is 3rd. His ERA is first at 2.18. His FIP is first at 2.20. His homers per 9 is a ridiculous number. He's allowed 0.17 homers per 9 innings. So that's like 1 homer every 80 innings or whatever. So I think he's maybe allowed 2 in the entire year or whatever. It's ridiculous. Walks per 9 also really good as well too. 1.57 is 5th in the American League. You just look at his numbers. If you're not giving up homers, if you're not giving up walks, you make it a whole lot harder for the other team to score runs. Even if they do get a couple hits off you, they're not going to be those big extra base hits that drive in runs. And he's done that to a T for the Red Sox this season. He's my Cy Young halfway through the 2024 season.
I've got no problem
on the NL side.
Yeah. So we'll start off the honorable mentions with any Philly pitcher that we don't mention because they've all been ridiculously good. Also, Chris Sale, Sonny Gray. Seems like he's finally figured out what he is, and it's okay to not be the number 1 every night, but to last for as long as he has. Just awesome.
Yeah. The 3 guys I have in my honorable mentions for the NL Cy Young: Logan Webb, who just eats up a ton of innings, has the most in the NL, I believe. Sonny Gray, who only has 14 games started, but if he was up at 16 or 17, I definitely think I'd have him in my top 3. And then I got to put this guy in there. Paul Skeens, only 8 games started, but this guy is ridiculous. He needs to be talked about. He won't be getting votes. He might be getting votes by the end of the year. You never know, but he's so dominant, and he's younger than me, which is crazy. On to number 3.
How about we start off with Zach Wheeler? He's still doing his thing. I feel like he would be the clear choice in most years, being top five in everything from ERA, batting average against, strikeouts, just very dominant.
Yeah, Zach Wheeler is my number 3 candidate as well too. He fits the bill of what a Cy Young would look like. A guy that throws hard, gets a ton of innings, has that bulldog mentality for you on the mound, and he's done exactly that for the Philadelphia Phillies, who lead the National League and I believe all of the MLB in wins right now. As far as Zach Wheeler specifically, 99 innings pitched in 16 games started, which is fourth. His ERA is sixth in the league. His WAR is sixth as well too. He's dominant, he's efficient, and he gets the job done for Philly. Number 2.
How about Tyler Glasnow? I've been seeing a lot of Glasnow hate recently. I think it's Tampa Bay fans, but like I didn't think they had any, so I was confused. But anyways, he leads baseball in strikeouts with 135. Still, he's been one of the most consistent pitchers in the league and the most consistent he's ever been. It was a big trade. A lot could have gone wrong, and all is good other than the Mookie Betts injury for the Dodgers.
Yeah. Number 2 for me is going to be where I slot Ranger Suarez. The 92 and a third innings pitched in 15 games started is 7th in the league. However, the reason why he's not first is because that's not 100 innings in 16 games started now at this point. And that's, again, just another big pull factor for me. Regardless, though, his WAR is at 2.8, which is third in the National League among starting pitchers. His ERA is second among pitchers who have pitched at least 60 innings or 50 innings, I want to say. I believe Reynaldo Lopez is the only guy that he's behind. But the ERA is 1.75 is ridiculous. The FIP is at 2.68, which is sixth in the league. Strikeouts have never been a thing for Ranger Suarez. This year they are at 9.3 per 9 innings, which is 16th. The walk rate is good, 7th in the league, and the homers really good as well too, 6th in the league. Ranger Suarez is just a complete package now for this Philadelphia Phillies team. And it's crazy to say Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, how good of the seasons they've had, they haven't been the best starter on their team. And it's Ranger Suarez by a decent margin as well, too. Number 1.
So number 1, I did go with Ranger. This is the kind of thing I don't normally do. It's kind of a makeup pick because I kind of thought this was a fluke. And I finally have him at number 1. Of course, Zach Wheeler is the better all-around ace. They were arguing about this in the party before you joined, and I just thought it was hilarious. I just read him what I wrote here because Ranger has the better numbers so far this season. It's the wins. It's the qualified ERA under 2. He doesn't give up homers. He doesn't walk guys. Now he can strike them out. That's massive. If he played 20 years ago, they would have already sent him the trophy.
Yeah. It's a weird thing with especially pitchers. I don't feel like it's for hitters as much. It's like a feel thing. Does this guy feel like a Cy Young candidate? And Ranger Suarez just doesn't feel that way. I don't know. It's kind of weird to say. Maybe it's like he doesn't throw the hardest or whatever it is. But Zach Wheeler feels like that guy. Paul Skeens feels like a guy that could be that guy. Logan Webb, maybe. Sonny Gray, maybe. But these big, tall guys that are getting a ton of strikeouts just feel like the guys who are going to be favored more in the Cy Young voting. And I went with that way for my choice here. And that's Tyler Glasnow, who leads the National League starters in WAR at 2.9. He has 100 innings pitched in 16 games started. Like you said, leads the league in strikeouts. He's also first in K per 9 at 12.2 per 9 innings. His ERA 2.88 is 8th. FIP is 2.63, and that's 4th. He's also first in both expected ERA and expected FIP, so maybe those numbers get better as time goes on. The walk rate, when you're striking out 12 and a half guys per 9 innings, you're able to get away with some more walks because you're just going to miss bats in general, and 2.25 walks per 9 innings is still really, really good, especially when you're giving up less than a homer per 9 innings, which he was doing just barely at 0.99 home runs per 9 innings. Tyler Glasnow's been the full package this year, and I understand the Ranger Suarez pitch, but Tyler Glasnow's got to be my guy. On to the AL Rookie of the Year. Any honorable mentions?
Nope.
I had one guy I didn't want to mention, and he leads the AL rookies in WAR right now, and that's Colton Cowser. I think Rookie of the Year is a interesting thing because you can look at the full picture of this guy came up super early in the year and he's played the whole year and he's been good over that time span? Or do you value more a guy that came up in May or June, but for that, 3-month stretch was ridiculously good? And I think for Colin Cowser, that full product has been solid, but I don't think his peak is as good as what I would want for a guy for Rookie of the Year. On to number 3, though.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure. I try to find the best all-around players for this thing, and that's why I'm going with Ceddanne Rafaela. I think I'm pronouncing that right, of Boston. He hasn't done amazing things with the bat yet, but playing center field every day is just as valuable as some of the other guys you mentioned who are going to be platooning for the next couple of years still.
I do love Ceddanne Rafaela. I did leave him off my list, though. My number 3 guy is Louis Eel at 1.8 WAR right now. It's second among American League rookies. First innings pitched by quite a wide margin at 81.1. ERA is great, 2.77. FIP is good, 3.3. K per 9 is ridiculous at 10.7. Homers per 9 are good. 9 wins, which doesn't mean anything to me, but means things to voters sometimes. This guy was in the Cy Young conversation like 3 weeks ago, less than that. He just had a bad start against the Orioles, I want to say, this past week. And that's really what's throwing everything off. He's been really, really good for this Yankees team and held him over the entire time that Garrett Cole's gone. And now he's back and he's still in the rotation. Number 2.
Number 2, I'm going to go with Mason Miller of the A's. 14 out of 16 on the opportunities, over 15 Ks per 9 still. And I don't think giving up a couple of home runs this month should be enough to knock him that far down the list like I've seen on some of the odds.
My number 2 guy has not been mentioned yet, but I'm going Wyer Abreu is my number 2. He's got a 1.5 WAR, which is tied for third in American League as far as rookies go. In his 56 games played, it's 6 homers, a 121 WRC plus, 7 stolen bases, but he's the full package as well, too, because he plays great defense and right for the Red Sox with 6 defensive runs saved and 3 fielding run value, according to StatCast or whatever. Regardless, 5-tool player so far for the Red Sox, and I forget what trade he was. I saw a video about this from Jolly Olive, I think. He was in the Christian Vasquez trade when the Red Sox traded Vasquez to the Astros. They got back Wyer Abreu and Emmanuel Valdez. That's who it was. So 2 starters for the Red Sox out of a catcher that they traded to the Astros. They won the World Series, but he didn't do jack shit for the Astros, which was kind of crazy to think about. Number 1.
I got to go with Luis Eel. Like you said, he's been the best AL rookie starter by far this season. I know there aren't a whole lot of them, but the fact that the Yankees have let this guy go for as long as he can, and I know he's had a couple of rough starts recently, one really bad one last week, but he still got the sub-3 ERA, nearly 100 Ks, and they really need him. So I think they're okay with him getting blown up a little bit sometimes if it means that they found another guy who's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, Louis Eel looks like a stud. I'm going in a different direction. Maybe I'm a bit biased. I went Mason Miller. 1.5 WAR as a closer is ridiculous. The 15.6 K9 is ridiculous anywhere you look. That's otherworldly when it comes to that stuff. The 2.08 ERA, third among AL rookies. I mean, it's crazy thing. It feels like he's been bad over the past month, or he just hasn't been himself, and he's still really, really, really good. The FIP at 1.94 is second among AL rookies, only behind Cade Smith, who I do deserves just a slight bit of a shout out. The 14 saves by far the most as far as any rookie goes. Mason Miller is ridiculous. I think he's got an opportunity to win it this year too, without there being a Paul Skeens in the AL or something like that, or if Jackson Holiday or Junior Caminero came up and just mashed right out the gates. It would have been tough, but I think there's a window now for Mason Miller with some of these other guys not having maybe the greatest last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
On to the NL side, Skyler, any honorable mentions here?
Yeah, a couple starters that we've both watched a lot of. How about Jared Jones and Mr. Yamamoto?
I had 3 starters in mind. I have Yamamoto as one of them. The other 2 guys you did not mention, I have Shota here, who I feel like might be on your list somewhere. And then I have Gavin Stone as well too. He's been really good for the Dodgers. ERA just above 3, and he's pitching tonight against the White Sox, and he's already maybe that's tomorrow. I don't know. Regardless, Gavin Stone's been really good for the Dodgers. Number 3.
Yeah, I do have Imanaga on the list. I think it's really close between Yamamoto and Jared Jones, but despite having another guy with some blow up starts recently, I'm trying to look past it because he seems like a guy who's going to be way closer to his prime, already being 30 years old. I think he's going to get back on track and actually finish top 3 in the voting. So I don't want to take him out yet.
No, I'm interested to see for Shota if they discredit him because he is 30. And the guy that I'm going to talk about first here is 21 years old, and that's Jackson Merrill. And I'm curious if they just are going to be more preferential to Jackson Merrill because he is 9 years younger than Shota. Is something that's interesting to be seen. I don't really know how I would grade it. Just as of right now, I'm taking Jackson Merrill as my number 3 guy. 2.1 WAR is tied for second in the National League as far as rookies go. He's got 10 homers, and 7 of them just happened within the past 2 weeks. It feels like a 288 batting average, 9 stolen bases, and a 121 to WRC plus. Another thing to note as well, too, this is this guy's first time playing center field. He was a shortstop, second baseman the entire time coming up throughout the minor league. Played that in high school. I assume played that in middle school, elementary school, everywhere you name it. Came in to play center field as a major leaguer, and he's been an above-average center fielder, which is crazy to say because this guy's ridiculously young at 21 years old. Only 1 defensive run saved, but 4 fielding run value according to StatCast. I mean, this guy's going to be a great center fielder in 2 to 3 years. Just give him some time, but he's the full package as a player. And San Diego, I'm sure, is extremely happy that they called him up at the beginning of the year. Number 2.
Yeah, number 2 is where I have Jackson Merrill. I agree with you completely. He's going to be above Imanaga no matter how this goes down. But it's, again, you nailed it, man. He's playing center field every day. And all the talk before the Korea series was, why is this guy up? There's no way he could possibly be ready. And he killed it, man. It's kind of like why I picked Rafaela for the American League. It's very valuable to have a solid guy out there every single day. But this guy flat out rakes. 288 qualified batting average for the 21-year-old. Definitely a notable rookie season.
Yeah, and I think another crazy thing with Merrill, he's not just 21. He just turned 21, but the big question for me when I saw him coming up was is his bat ready at 20 years old? You really don't see unless it's this 5-grade prospect coming up that their bat survives easily. And he found a way to not make his batting average extremely suffer in the first part of the season. I mean, his OPS wasn't great. It was mid 600s in the first couple months of the season. But now that he's found his power and he's, playing Petco Park the way it needs to be played as a left-handed hitter, he is raking. And his OPS is nearly 800 now at this point. It's just to see a hitter mature that quickly as a 21-year-old is ridiculously cool to see. And he's going to be, I don't want to say superstar yet, but he's got that ability to become one in San Diego over the next, 10 to 15 years if they plan it correctly.
This is what Evan Carter was supposed to do.
Exactly, yeah. Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford. I wish you guys were on our top 3 for Rookie of the Year, but you guys are not because you got hurt and you sucked. But Langford's been better over the past week or so. Regardless, my number 2 guy is Joey Ortiz, who leads the National League rookies in WAR at 2.5. He's got 6 homers, 278 batting average, 5 stolen bases, a 138 WRC plus. He's been a great third baseman for the Milwaukee Brewers, who lead the NL Central. 2 defensive runs saved and 5 outs above average at third base. It's been good, man. This was a guy who came up last year for the Orioles and sucked really, really bad. Still a top 100 prospect, but wasn't really didn't feel like a top 100 prospect when he was in the big leagues last year. Got traded to the Brewers in the Corbin Burns deal, him and DL Hall, and it just kind of felt immediate loss for the Brewers. This guy's making it so it's not that way. He's been great for them. I assume he probably plays third base for them for the next 4 to 5 years if they don't trade him or something like that. Number 1.
Number 1, We're going with Grandpa Lee. No, I'm kidding. It's Paul Skeens. He looks like he's already the best rookie in the league, like from the moment he stepped on to the mound in the major leagues. And he's not even a qualified pitcher yet. It's pretty nuts. It seems like this is going to be a pretty safe bet, in my opinion. The 2.14 ERA, and I know it's not qualified. I mentioned it, but still, 12 Ks per nine as a starting pitcher who's only been pitching for a couple of years ever. One of the craziest stories in a while in Major League Baseball, I think.
Yeah, this is the argument for the quality of the product in Paul Skeens, and he came up in May, which is great. It's the craziest thing here is that if he wins Rookie of the Year, then and the Pirates say miss the playoffs by 2 to 3 games, calling him up in May wouldn't mean jack shit for them because he still accumulates that full year of service time. And therefore, all that service time manipulation that they did at the beginning of the season wouldn't be worth anything. So it's like, Pittsburgh Pirates, why the fuck did you do this? This guy you knew he was good enough. If he was up, he was going to win Rookie of the Year. And he's still going to win it, in my opinion. He's my number one choice right now as well, too. Yeah. His 1.5 WAR is 8 among rookies at this point, and he's only played 8 games in the MLB, 46.1 innings pitched. 11.9 K per nine, 1.55 walks per nine. His walks per nine is like up there at the top of the league, and he's a guy who strikes out more than anybody who's on that like top 10 to 15 spot. The 2.14 ERA is ridiculous, 2.50 FIP, like Cy Young stuff, man. If he was up for the entire year, he would be in conversation for that at this point. And
if you dropped him in Atlanta, you would think he was Spencer Strider.
Yeah, if he was playing in San Diego, how they rush their prospects. If he was playing in Atlanta, how they love to put their pitchers up as soon as they get the ability to throw the baseball. He'd be right there in the NL Cy Young voting. And man, the Pirates just butchered this. If they missed the playoffs by a couple games, I'd be really pissed. Yep. On to manager of the year, though, in the American League. Skyler, any honorable mentions that you want to talk about here?
I didn't have any. I won't mention anyone right now. We'll save that for later.
The only guy I do want to talk about, if they make the playoffs, I think he'll be looked at quite a bit. Matt Quatraro, the coach for the Royals. I probably butchered his last name, but came over from the Rays this past season. He was a guy that I wanted the A's to get before we got Kotsay. Ended up, Kotsay's not a bad manager, but definitely hasn't worked out the way that we have wanted it to in the first year and a half with him. But Quatraro in Kansas City has been great. They're above 500. They're surprising everybody. Fizzled out a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but still very, very noteworthy. Who is it, though? Who's the manager of the year, Skyler?
It's Stephen Vogt. They turned things around so quickly in Cleveland, and you have to imagine having a relatable manager coming in helped a lot with that.
Yeah, I look at Stephen Vogt on the bench, and it still feels like he's a player, man. This guy is such an easy guy to root for. I don't think there's a single person who dislikes Stephen Vogt unless you were a Tigers fan at 9 p.m. in October of 2020, or not 2020, 2013 for a little bit there. Regardless, Stephen Vogt is amazing. He night and day from last year. And I think the crazy thing is that it's not like Cleveland had a bad manager before. They had Terry Francona. It's just maybe the vibe wasn't right with him or whatever, but the vibe is right with Stephen Vogt. They didn't make any changes really in the roster either. It's crazy to see how different the team feels from this year to last year, and the team really hasn't changed at all. So Stephen Vogt easily my AL manager of the year for the 50 and 26 Cleveland Guardians. NL manager of the year.
Again, I didn't write down any honorable mentions, but we know if it's a really close race right now. Anyone's up for there. I'm going to go with Ollie Marmol, though, of St. Louis. As of right now, they're the number 2 wild card in the NL. And the big reason why I put him here is because everyone was coming for this guy's neck last season. So it only seems right if they do actually make the playoffs. I guess postseason is the right way. My apologies, foolish baseball and everybody. But then he would deserve it, right? This team looked like a mess.
Yeah, I feel like the narrative for Ollie Marmol, you nailed it. He's like they hired him to get fired. You know, that's the type of feel where it had, where it's just like they're waiting for Yachty to take over that role, and he's showing that maybe the Cardinals aren't backing down this year. The only honorable mention I had though is Pat Murphy in Milwaukee. He's been great. I don't think this team should have had the narrative that they had going into the regular season, where it was like, oh, they're not going to be as good, and just because they lost Corbin Burns, they're going to be this ridiculously bad team. It was the team like going into the season where we looked at the over-unders and it was like immediately Brewers over, like 77 and a half, whatever it was. It just, come on now.
At least
Pat
81.
Murphy,
Come on.
like Pat Murphy, maybe he hasn't done a great job of improving the team, but he's done a great job of maximizing the stuff that they have, and he's got to be an honorable mention for me. Who's your manager of the year, though?
My manager of the year was Marmol.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Yeah. My manager of the year, though, is going to be Rob Thompson. I think he won it last year, and I don't really think we see back-to-back winners, but with the steps that this team has taken from last year to this year, becoming a regular season team is ridiculous. So Rob Thompson, I just think, deserves his flowers again and would be the NL manager of the year for me.
All right. Yeah.
Moving on, though.
Bob Melvin is always a guy, but they're so hard to watch. So no honorable mention. I went straight with the Ollie Marmol.
That's valid. On to our AL Breakout, kind of an award that isn't named. They don't have a comeback player of the year in MLB, unfortunately, or Breakout. However, I think everybody wishes that they did, because it'd be a cool one to give out. Any honorable mentions that you have here, though, Skyler?
Sure. Tanner Houck really should be the guy, but we talked about him so much earlier. I picked a different guy.
I have three guys that I did want to shout out. Josh Smith from the Rangers has turned into a incredible player. Stephen Kwan is almost hitting 400 for the Guardians. I think he deserves to be shouted out, even if he's not a qualified bat or whatever you want to call it. And then Jarren Duran of the Red Sox has been a exciting and ridiculously good player for the Red Sox. Who's your breakout player of the year, though, so far?
I'm going to go with Seth Lugo of Kansas City. This one I did not see coming at all. You can make a case for all the younger hitters, starting to hit their prime. It happens. Guys have good seasons. But this one, a solid back of the rotation guy that you could rely on. But now he's hitting all his career highs at age 34.
I like the Seth Lugo pick. I decided to go with Tanner Houck as my guy. I'm not going to go into the numbers because I already talked about it, but he's ridiculous. And for this to happen, I don't want to say out of nowhere because he had some nasty stuff, but to put it all together just like that, and it just happened, and he's good and great and the best pitcher in the American League, I did not see coming. It's Tanner Houck, breakout player of the year in the AL. On to the NL side. Any honorable mentions here?
Of course there are. I forgot to write honorable mentions for these. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but maybe I'll think of more as we get into it. So go ahead.
I could say mine if maybe that brings something to your head. I'd say Alec Bohm is one guy who has been really good. I've kind of been a hater on, and it's now kind of proving me wrong. Elliot Ramos of the Giants, he's been really, really good. Christopher Sanchez for the Phillies, who was solid. I think you could put Ranger Suarez in here as well, too. And then one guy that definitely was not going to be mentioned is Jake Irvin of the Washington Nationals. He has been really, really good for them, pitching to at like 3.1 something ERA. A ton of innings as well, too. Jake Irvin's really, really good. He showed it in spurts last year, and I think he's really breaking out as like an all-star caliber pitcher this year.
All right. Yeah, I remembered mine. Robert Suarez. I knew I was missing a reliever. San Diego.
Yeah. Who's your breakout?
All right. We talked about this one for a second earlier because I just want some clarification, but I am going to go with Jurickson Profar. We're both pretty big Profar supporters and have been, I think, even before he came to the A's. And we knew he wasn't done yet, but he's gone way beyond expectations now. Ridiculous amount of walks. It's 41 walks to 49 Ks. He's got the 6th highest OPS in the National League. It's just awesome. He's going to be starting in the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's crazy what's happening for Jurickson Profar right now, and he's my breakout player of the year as well too in the NL. I I wanted to say he was done. I know you said that we didn't want to say he was done. I thought he maybe was after last year. Disappointing year for the Rockies. He was kind of floating around in free agency, and Padres pick him up because they had Graham Pauley slotted as their starting opening day left fielder, whatever it is. We talked about this a ton, how
Yeah.
they needed to fix starting Jose Azocar or Graham Pauley as opening day starters. They picked up a whole bunch of different guys, whether that's Luis Arias, David Peralta, and Jurickson Profar again. And Profar's turned out to be everything that they more than everything that they could have wished for him. He wasn't nearly this good when he first played for them a couple years ago. This year, 2.7 WAR is top 20 in the MLB. The 10 homers, 50 RBIs, 160 WRC plus. It's 11th in the MLB, which is ridiculous. And his 3.17 batting average is 8th in the league as well too. And I think the easy thing for this is like just call it a fluke. Like he's gonna have a couple month period, be good, and the shitty second half. You watch this guy hit, and it just doesn't feel that way. It feels like this is here to stay. And it feels like Jurickson Profar is breaking out as a 29 or 30-year-old now at this point.
Pretty sick.
Yeah. One thing that is not that sick, or sick in the other meaning though, is our bust awards that we got to give out. This one is the only award that you do not want to have. Do you have any honorable mentions for this one, Skyler?
Yeah, there are two main guys I want to talk about here that were in my top 3 AL Cy Young predictions. So my honorable mention will be Pablo Lopez, Minnesota. Just had a crazy game. He's obviously not done, but rough. Over a 5 ERA so far.
Mm. Yeah, it's I do want to preface this for this award. I tried to stay away from guys that have been hurt. So if you were hurt and trying to come back and it just didn't work out for you, I tried to stay away from that. The 4 guys I do want to have in honorable mentions, I'll go over them quickly. Zach Galoff is the first one. We really thought in Oakland that this guy was going to be like right away into the face of the franchise, and he was that last year. He's had some spurts this year, but just not that good of a full product. Tristan McKenzie, this stuff just isn't there anymore after last year getting hurt. This year he's been healthy pretty much the entire year, but he's just not that good. Hunter Brown starting to turn it around now, but in the first month and a half of the season, he had like a 9 ERA, which is not at all indicative of how good Hunter Brown should be. And then Chas McCormick as well too of the Houston Astros. He was really good last year. Thought he was just going to continue having another good season. Starting to turn it up now, but he's been really bad in the first couple months of the season. But who is it, Skyler? Who's your AL bust of the year?
I'm going to go with Kevin Gausman, the guy I picked to win the Cy Young. Just seems like the decline is starting. He doesn't have the same amount of juice anymore. ERA over 4. He's still going to strike guys out, but it's not the same that I thought it would be. And that kind of happens a lot with Toronto these days, unfortunately. So they're probably going to split things up pretty soon.
My AL bust of the first half of the year is going to be Spencer Torkelson. Former first overall pick, had a really rough 2022 that saw him come up as a top prospect and then get sent down after disappointing and then coming back up and being okay. 2023 was a solid product for him. He wasn't crazy, but he hit 30 homers, almost had 100 RBIs, a really solid season that looked like he was going to be the guy for the next 5 to 10 years for the Detroit Tigers, the mainstay in the lineup. This year came up and was terrible. Negative 0.8 WAR, 70 WRC plus. Ended up making him get sent down. You'd expect him to just go rake in AAA. It has not been the case. In 17 games at AAA, at 686 OPS, so he's below average there as well too. Can we label him a bust as total at this point? I think unless some major things change, he's gonna be labeled as a bust, which sucks to see that from a guy who Bay Area type raised, and we wanted to do good as a West Coast kid. On to the NL side, honorable mentions here.
Yeah, I got a big one here. Will Benson. I actually picked him to be my NL breakout, in the preseason episode. And he started off the season really hot, but he just doesn't have it, man. I think it was a 194 average the last time I checked, and can't really stay in the lineup anymore.
Yeah, Benson was the guy I relied heavy on too. I picked him in, I think, both my fantasy leagues, and I have dropped him in both my fantasy leagues. The three guys I have as my honorable mentions, though, will be Nolan Jones, who has been hurt, but
You were really high on him, yeah.
Was really bad. In the past couple, I'd say past week, ever since he came back, he's been solid.
Okay.
But maybe he was just playing through injury. That's why I don't have him as my number one guy. But I do hope that he turns out good because I did pick him in fantasy and he's still sitting in my lineup. The other two guys, veterans, and did not expect this type of season from them. Paul Goldschmidt is the first one. Just St. Louis, like they've solid without good production from Arenado or Goldschmidt, which is kind of crazy to see. And then a guy from after the postseason you really expected to be locked in going into the next year, and that's Jordan Montgomery for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he has not been that. Got a slow start because he's a Boris agent or Boris, person and client, and didn't get his spring training. And Boris is now probably regretting that for his guy. But Montgomery is my honorable mention there. Who's your bust of the year in the NL, though, Skyler?
Yeah, I have three massive busts for the National League, and they all play for the Diamondbacks. It's why I'm wearing a Diamondbacks hat today. We'll start off with the guy you just mentioned, Jordan Montgomery. He really got screwed, man. And I know it's not done. I believe he has an option for next season, too. We know he's good in the postseason. You just got to get there first. You also have Eugenio Suarez. We thought this was going to be a major upgrade over Longo. He's hitting under the Mendoza line. And the last guy's going to be Corbin Carroll. He's right next to Suarez in OPS. And after what he did last year, I'm pretty disappointed. And we both understand he's not done. He'll be back at some point. But this season, you guys don't have a lot of time left with Ketel Marte. This could be one of your last runs together.
Yeah, I didn't put Corbin Carroll as mine. However, I do look at it now as maybe something I should have done. However, I do think it's very injury related for him. It feels like it's still his shoulder from last year, and he never got surgery for that. And it feels like the Diamondbacks are just trying to get through the season with him at this point. It feels if they don't turn it on, by mid-July, I wouldn't be shocked if they just shut him down and say, hey, get surgery, come back next year, and become Corbin Carroll, because they're not going to do anything with him performing at this rate anyways. So might as well go into the knife, get done what he needs to get done, and then come back in 2025 and be as good as 2023 Corbin Carroll, hopefully even better as he gets older. But my NL bus, it's a guy I thought was going to be a generational hitter, and that's Jordan Walker. He's only 22, but has a 44 WRC plus this season and a negative .3 WAR. Got sent down to AAA in, I want to say, early May. 43 games at AAA, 723 OPS, so he hasn't been good there either. Just disappointing, man. We expected this guy to be so good, and he's been terrible.
Did my tweet help you with this pick at all?
I thought that you knew who I was picking. I already had it set, but I was scared because I thought you knew my pick at that point. I was kind of scary. But anyways, moving on to our projected playoff seeding. We will start off. I'll let you go ahead with your wild cards in the AL. Skyler, who do you have 4 through 6?
All right. I just kept it as what we got right now. I didn't want to mess around. Let me take a quick look at the current standings for the wild card and let you know who my first couple out are. Of course, Kansas
we can
City
do
has
the.
a chance.
Oh yeah. Never mind. I said something else.
Oh, my apologies. I always think I have everything prepared and then forget something. And then I guess we talked about Arizona. I guess they could have a good second half technically, but I got the current standings is what I got. So you want me to start with 3-6 or 4-5?
I'll get through my teams first because I'll just say what I have then at that point. So my 1 seed, I do have the Orioles winning the American League East. I think the Yankees will not win it. I think the Orioles will just have a better second half. Maybe the Yankees go through an injury or something like that. I think Baltimore's better equipped to go through the trade deadline as well too. I have the Guardians still winning the Central, which I think is pretty consensus. They're the 2 seed, and then the Mariners at the 3. My 3 wildcard teams in the East are the Yankees at 4, Twins at 5. I do have the Astros as my 6th seed. I do think they end up getting in. Only 2 games under 500 now, winners of 5 in a row. I think they could pass up Boston pretty easily at some point in the season. On the NL side, I'll say my teams as well here too. I have the Phillies as 1. They stay at that point. I don't really think they're going to be challenged for that, except for maybe from the Dodgers, who I have at the number 2 spot. Then the Brewers at 3, winners of the Central. And then the wild card teams that I do have are the Braves, the Padres, and my 6th seed I put the Pirates as the number 6 seed. I do think they get in with that, Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, and Paul Skeens trio that they have. So we'll get into the AL wild card picks now. So I'll let you do the whole round there. 6-3, 5-4.
All right. So my first matchup, 3-6, is going to be the Mariners hosting Boston. I like Seattle in this one. I don't trust the Boston lineup as much as I do Seattle, even though this is kind of the perfect first round matchup, right? I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm keeping it all the same. This is cool. And then my 4-5, the Yankees are ahead right now. So we got Baltimore beating the snot out of Minnesota.
My AL wildcard matchups, I have number 6 seeded Houston going to number 3 seeded Seattle, which would be a pretty cool scenario there. I do have Seattle coming out of it this time. I just think the pitching is in better condition for the Mariners now than it was a couple years ago, and that's all they're going to need playing at home to get a series victory there. And then on the other one, 5-4, I have 5 seeded Minnesota going to the 4 seeded Yankees. Minnesota just gets such bad draws in these. Yeah. If they play the Yankees, they lose. They're going to play the Yankees again, and they're going to lose, unfortunately. So Yankees and Seattle advance. On to the ALDS guy there. I'll let you go through your matchups here.
All right. So the 1-4 is going to be the Guardians hosting Baltimore. And again, it's a tough draw for Cleveland here. They're probably better off not getting the 1 seed, actually. Which they probably won't in reality. We'll see how long this lasts. I got Baltimore. I really like them. You mentioned they maybe it was even before we did this conversation, but they have the ability to go grab whoever they need at the deadline. So that's going to be massive for them. And the Yankees beat Seattle. There's something different about this Yankees team. There's something not really different about Seattle when you look at their lineup. So that's what I got.
Yeah. ALDS for me, I have the 4 seeded Yankees versus the 1 seeded Baltimore. I think that would be an amazing series. I wish we could see it in the ALCS. But this case, we don't, and I think the Orioles win that series there. And then 3 seeded Seattle versus 2 seeded Cleveland. This one was really tough because I want Cleveland to go. However, I can see Seattle winning. I decided to go Seattle as the winner. I just think the pitching for them, especially starting pitching, gives them the nod over Cleveland. And that sets up Baltimore and Seattle, ALCS together. How does your ALCS play out?
So the 2-seeded Yankees and the 4-seeded Baltimore Orioles, like I said, AL East matchup. I really like what Baltimore's doing, man. I like what they've done head-to-head. I don't like what the Yankees have done head-to-head against the top-tier teams this season, and that's what it comes down to. So I got Baltimore going to the World Series, man. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I have Seattle and Baltimore in my ALCS. I have the same thing as you, though. I have Baltimore moving on. I think in every single prediction I've had them winning. And it just feels like it's their year to not disappoint like they did in the year prior. On to the NL side, Skyler, tell me your wild card matchups and who you got.
All right, the 4-seeded Braves and the 5-seeded Cardinals are my first matchup, and I like the Braves a lot here, even with all their struggles. Much deeper team than St. Louis. And the 3-6, actually a pretty fun one. We've seen this one a couple times before. The Brewers hosting the Padres. I actually have the Padres getting the upset here. It's really good 1-2-3 in the rotation. It's a lot of power, at least as of right now. most of these guys we've talked about, Profar, Merrill, in the lineup, they're hot. So I have to go with them.
No. My wild card matchups, my 6-3 is the 6-seeded Pirates going to the divisional foe Brewers, the number 3 seed. And I go to the pitching here when I look at these wild card series. And you're facing Skeens, Jones, and Keller if you're the Brewers. And if you're the Pirates, you're facing Freddie Peralta. Then who? Like who's the next guy for them? Is it Colin Ray? Is it DL Hall? Who's the guy that's going to be taking the ball from them? And I know the Brewers have a ton of guys that can give them a couple innings or two and be really dominant. But Skeens and Jones, man, those are 7 tough innings that you're going to have. And I assume if Pittsburgh's close at the deadline, they're going to pick somebody up. I've seen some rumors for Louis Bob. I thought would be pretty interesting for them to go after because they do have some prospects. Maybe give them Henry Davis and be done with that. Regardless, I have Pittsburgh moving on in that wild card series. And then 5-seeded San Diego Padres going to Atlanta, the 4 seed. This one was really close because I do think these two teams are more evenly matched now with the injuries for Atlanta. But I do think Atlanta still prevails. Like you got to imagine that lineup's going to be clicking by that time. And I can't pick against Atlanta in that series. On to the NLDS together. Who do you have here?
Yeah, how about another crazy divisional matchup? Phillies hosting Atlanta. And it's tough, man, because I can't really pick against the Phils right now. I was really happy about not the injuries of Atlanta, of course, but that they were on track to have the most wins in baseball because that's what I was predicting. And they have it right now. They don't have a whole lot of issues. The other matchup is going to be the Dodgers taking care of the Padres pretty easily. They've seen the craziness, the knuckleballs, whatever they throw at them. The Dodgers should be fine up until they get to this next round.
Yeah. My NLDS, I have the 4-seeded Atlanta Braves going up against the number 1-seeded Philly. Plays out the same way that's played out the last 2 times. I think Philly gets the series victory there, especially with the home field advantage now. No Spencer Strider and no Ronald Acuna. Then in the NLDS, I have the 6-seeded Pittsburgh Pirates going to Los Angeles to play the Dodgers. Maybe Pittsburgh steals a game, depending on how their pitching lines up. Maybe 2. But the Dodgers, no way lose that series. If Pittsburgh was in the NLCS, I'd probably go crazy. And I don't think they will be. So the Dodgers get the advance to the NLCS, Skyler. How does your NLCS play out?
I feel like every time we do one of these exercises, I flip to the other side, but I am going to stick with the Phillies here. It seems like the Dodgers have a lot of problems that no one really talks about. Gavin Lux, fielding. How about shortstop right now without Mookie Betts? What if he has a setback? They are screwed. Other than that, it should be pretty fun. No, you're good. But I do have the Phillies. Moving on.
I have the same series as you, 1-2, again with the Phillies and the Dodgers. The Phillies just got it, man. If they're home, I think they're going to be a really tough team to beat, and they're going to be playing at home at least for 4 games in the series if it goes that long. And I have them winning. And moving on to the World Series, which gives us the same boring matchup that we probably got last time with Baltimore and Philadelphia as our World Series together. Who is your pick here? Who's your MVP? Just off the top of your head.
Actually, just right now, as we're talking about this, flipped my pick again. I originally had Baltimore, but I'm going to go with Philly. If their starting rotation's healthy, no one's going to beat them, man. I think Zach Wheeler is our MVP, but they're going to end up giving it to Bryce because he means so much to that team.
Yeah, this one's tough because I was really debating on who to put here because I think if there's one lineup that could counter the Philly rotation, it's Baltimore's. And if there's one lineup or one pitching rotation that can counter Philly's, solid lineup, it's probably Baltimore's as well too. They got a ton of guys that have pitching big games. But I just decided to go with whoever's going to be playing at home, whoever has home field advantage in this series and gets that 4th game. I think Philly ends up winning more in the regular season. I think their schedule is probably a bit easier too, playing in the NL with some less top-heavy teams in there. So I have the Phillies win the World Series, and I have Harper as the MVP because I really want him to get one.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on from that, we got the NBA draft just snuck up on us, and it's tomorrow now.
Yeah.
So Skylar's got an NBA mock draft. Skylar, tell me about this.
So I was doing my notes all day long. I didn't finish until about 4:30. I didn't finish my mock draft. But what I have here is Tankathon's order. And how about we go through a couple picks just to get us ready for tomorrow? So because there's a lot of uncertainty here. It's a lot of international guys at the top. So we'll start off with Atlanta. All signs point towards Zachary Rishizer. Take your pick of any of those. He's the 6'9" wing. He reminds me of Tobias Harris. And Alexander Sarr said he doesn't want to play there. So why would you take a guy who you don't even know is good, who doesn't even want to go there? So I think they'll go in the different direction with Rishizer.
It's crazy that somebody like Alexander Sarr has the ability to say where he does and doesn't want to go because he shouldn't be a number one overall pick. Regardless, I don't know much about the dude that is projected to go on. I will find out how to say his last name tomorrow when Adam Silver says it. So I'm not going to even try to say it now.
That's a good bet.
I know that.
Big Zach. Number 2 is the Wizards pick, and we know 100% Alex Sarr does want to go there. He wants to be the star of his own team. So this is kind of the only spot in the next couple of picks where he could go. That's what you like. He's 7'1". He's going to play great defense. Just kind of positionless right now. So it's a little scary when you run into those guys. You could get a little James Wiseman on you, and not 2K simulation Wiseman, the real one. Number 3, you could say, is where the draft really starts off here because Houston was a pretty good team. They got this pick from the James Harden trade with Brooklyn. I'm seeing Reed Shepherd going here. He's the best shooter in the class. And you got to remember, too, this isn't really like having the 3rd pick. It's like having the 13th pick. And if you have the 13th pick and the best shooter in the class is still there, you might want to take him over a big man like Donovan Clingan. Number 4 is the Spurs' first pick of the night. They desperately need someone to get them the ball. I think they're even going to take 2 point guards here. So that could be Nikola Topic with the injury. He's the point guard from Serbia. He's more like Dragic than Luka, though. Don't get it confused. And then the other guy they could take, Rob Dillingham. Kind of a shooting guard. I compared him to a Lou Williams. I see him as a 6-man. That could be a good spot for him. Number 5, Sham's team finally picking here, getting screwed in the lottery. How about Matas Buzelis? I really like this guy. He's a 6'10" scorer. He's got a chip on his shoulder, something I haven't seen from anyone else in this class so far. This has been pretty underwhelming. But he said he wants to play Rishier one-on-one before the draft because he thinks that he's the best player. I'm like, see, this is what I'm talking about. I would take this kid. Still available for Charlotte, Stephon Castle, big guard from UConn. He's 6'7", plays great defense. So why not stick him next to LaMelo and see what happens, right? You got nothing left to lose there. Portland's up. They're a disaster, but all the top big men are available. How about Donovan Clingan for them? And then a couple remaining players. Cody Williams. He's the brother of J-Dub on the Thunder. He's a big guard at 6'8". It's kind of hard to describe him. Devin Carter, point guard Providence. He reminds me of Derek White. He led college in blocks for guards. He's only 6'3", so that's pretty cool. And Dalton Connect. He's the best college shooter. He's been there for a while. He's 23 on draft night. But a lot more experience than some international guys who don't get up that many shots. So that's what I got for you so far. Those are 10 guys that you should know for tomorrow. And I'm excited, even though I'm going to be working through the freaking draft again. But I'll try to check it out on my phone.
I might not even be watching, man. I haven't had this level of carefree in the draft in a long time. I'm not going to lie.
That's understandable. I get it. They've done a pretty bad job promoting this, too. Most of our friends didn't even know this is happening tomorrow.
For real.
Yeah, all right. One last thing I got here. Again, you watch these games, too. You chip in whenever you feel it is right. Omaha, the Tennessee Volunteers, they won 60 games this season, including the last one. You always want to win the last game. They take down Texas A&M in 3 games, 6-5. Our MVP of this tournament was Dylan Drayling. I didn't know him before the tournament, actually, but I did know some other guys like Christian Moore, Brock Burke. I think that's all I know there. But Texas A&M missing their star player. It was a great run and a pretty cool tournament to watch.
Yeah, and something about that last game as well, too. Game 3 last night.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the closest game as far as score goes. It felt like Tennessee was up 5, and then they're up 3, and then it only winning by 1. But that, like, the entire 7th, 8th, 9th inning, it felt like Texas A&M had the tying run up, or tying run was on deck. Like, it wasn't 1, 2, 3 in the 7th, 1, 2, 3 in the 8th. Like, it was all pressure pitches, and it made it really fun to watch down the stretch. And so I really enjoyed watching that game. And hopefully it continues to grow the game of college baseball, which needs some growth.
Yeah, we got lucky. There were a lot of stars in the tournament this year.
100%. Anyways, moving on from that, we'll get into our layups and bold predictions and get on out of here. Rough week last week in our layups and bold predictions. Only 1 for 4. I had the Giants over Chicago on Wednesday. That did not happen. It was close. Soler made it close to the Grand Slam late. It did not happen, though. Skyler had Milwaukee over San Diego on Thursday. That did not happen somehow, even though I really liked that pick. This week for our picks, I have Philly over Detroit on Wednesday. That is the Spencer Turnbull start. Finally getting the nod to go.
Nice.
He's pitching against his former team. I think they get the dub pretty easily there.
All right. Also going with some baseball. How about the Tigers over the Angels on Thursday night? That's going to be a very big pitching matchup. Jack Flaherty against undecided. Flaherty just misses out on our Cy Young talk, but he's been excellent this year. Sub-3 ERA.
We're turning to home, too, for Jack Flaherty. He went to Harvard Westlake, I want to say, for high school, and that's in the LA area. So I'm sure he'll probably have some family there. This week, or last week, though, for bold predictions, I had Oakland over Kansas City on Thursday. That was a Seth Lugo start. He had been struggling going into it, didn't struggle in that one. And I thought it was pretty interesting because the A's won the first 2 games of the series. However, they lose the third on Thursday. Skyler had Atlanta, though, over the Yankees on Friday. That was the day that they played on Apple TV, and the Braves really got to Carlos Rodon and destroyed them in that game. So good one for Skyler there. That's our only win that we had for the past week. This week, though, I have the White Sox first 5 tomorrow. That is Gavin Stone versus Eric Fetty. I think Fetty's been great for the White Sox. It's another opportunity for him to pitch against a good team and show why he is going to be traded within the next month. And I think he pitches good, and I think the White Sox maybe get a run or 2 off of Stone and get the first 5 victory.
Okay. I didn't realize how prevalent that has become. It's something we joked about for years, but now you can go bet on it. It's kind of funny. Like when Sham asked me, who's going to, win the Nerfy? I'm like, bro, where did you learn that? But yeah, I also got some baseball again. We're going to try to get back on track here with a very confusing game, of course. I got Houston over the Mets on Friday night. That's Ronel Blanco. So many of our bets have included him, and we always miss the mark. He either gets shelled or throws a gem. I'm going to take him to beat the Mets. Quintana is one of the only pitchers who hasn't been very consistent recently. We've seen even Severino throw a great game the other night. I'm going to go with Houston and Blanco to get the job done for me on Friday.
Yeah. That's going to do it, though, for episode 198. Again, only 2 weeks off of episode 200, which is pretty crazy to say. Little programming note, though. 201, expect for 201, I want to say, to be on a Monday, I think. There is some travel stuff that'll be going on in the future, going to Wrigley and stuff, so got to prepare for that. We'll maybe move that episode up a day, but that's obviously still a few weeks out. Regardless, so 199 should be on time next week. Hopefully this gets up to on time tonight. Then 200 is just 2 weeks away. Skyler, you got any closing regards?
You got to be there for the big 200.
For real.
Got to be there. Let's go A's. Hopefully something cool happens at the draft so we have something to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Is that draft week? No way, right? No way that's draft week. If we're doing – I got to check. Schedule.
Yeah.
Draft is the week after.
Oh.
Actually, wait, no. So 202 will be the one that's off. 201 will be on the exact time that the All-Star game starts, actually. I think that's like the 4th or 5th time that we've done that now at this point. But Regardless, 202 will be off. That's still 4 weeks away, though.
Well, all right. We'll be back next
Anyway,
week.
yep.
Baseball, football,
Basketball, maybe reaction to the draft. Who knows? Grading all 60 picks from the.
Where does
draft,
Bronny James go? Leave it in the description.
James, for real. Leave it somewhere.
All right.
Leave it in your mind.
Goodbye.